Shalom Aleichem, Rabbi Rabbatain. I decided to make a small video. Didn't prepare a whole thing to say, just out of my experience about to educate people a little bit of what they should be looking for when they're buying a kosher pair of tefillin or mezuzahs or anything else. A lot of people are not aware of how severe this mitzvah is and how serious it is and how much they need to approach a situation with care and to be able to know what they're asking for and to be able to understand what they want to buy. The Shulchan Aruch says, Gadol tzchad mitzvah tefillin. The wearing a tefillin is a tremendous amount of reward a person gets for it. And a person who doesn't put on tefillin is considered a poshe Israel, a sinner in the Jewish nation to a very strong extent. We'll see what that means. The Mishnah Berurah says, anybody that puts on tefillin is going to have a long life in this world. Marich yamim, a long life in this world. Right? Those people that wear tefillin. And not only that, he's guaranteed that he's going to have olam haba. Guaranteed that he's going to have olam haba. Of course, assuming that a person is doing whatever he needs to be doing. But this mitzvah guarantees the person to get olam haba. And not only that, the fires of Gehenna won't be able to be sholet on him, won't be able to take charge of him. And not only that, Hashem forgives him for all his avirot. That means that if a person puts on tefillin every single day, right, even though he might have the worst past, if he did teshuvah and he's davening and he's learning, he's putting on tefillin every day, Hashem will forgive him for all his avirot just for this mitzvah of tefillin. That's how great this mitzvah is. That means a person is guaranteed olam haba, long life in this world. He's going to be saved from Gehinnom, and he's going to get all his avirot forgiven for. Can you imagine if the mitzvah is so precious and so holy, how much the Yetzer Hara is going to try to work to be able to make it that a person will fall on this mitzvah? The Zohar says that at the end of the day, the Yetzer Hara is going to try to destroy three things: the shechita, the chazanim, and the tefillin, and the things that have to do with tefillin and mezuzot. Why? These are the three things that bring a person kiddusha and tahara and bring a person close to Hashem. So it says that even if a person doesn't wear tefillin here and there because he does that either carelessly, he's a part of this avirah, where it's considered poshe Israel begufan, and therefore a person needs to be very careful. The Mishnah Berurah writes that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if a person has half avirot and half mitzvot, Hashem tilts the scale to the mitzvot. If a person is in the middle half and half, Hashem tilts it to the good. Why? Because Hashem is not chesed, right? Since HaKadosh Baruch Hu is full of chesed, he's always not a klap chesed. So if a person is half and half, but on the half of the avirot is caught on this avirah that it doesn't put on tefillin, Hashem doesn't tilt it to the good side. It tilts to the negative side. Why? To the side of Gehinnom, and therefore a person needs to go to Gehinnom chas v'shalom. Not only that, if chas v'shalom a person has more avirot than mitzvot, he goes to Gehinnom, and afterwards they burn his soul, and his soul turns into ashes and olam haba chas v'shalom. It's very severe. Very, very severe if a person will lose his olam haba chas v'shalom. And therefore the mitzvah, Mishnah Berurah says, the mitzvah is such a great mitzvah, and the punishment is such a great punishment if a person doesn't put on tefillin. L'chein is the head, the Mishnah Berurah says, anybody that comes to buy tefillin and mezuzot, they should buy from a sofer, that's a professional, that's a yirei shemayim, and that's a bal Torah, a person that's full of Torah, a person that's a yirei shemayim, a person that's a professional, a person that understands what he's doing. Rav Yaakov used to say this also, you buy tefillin, you buy from a sofer only, you buy from a professional person who knows what he's doing. So to also a person on ritzuvot, straps, people think they're just going to look for the writing. But what about the straps? If the straps are not made right, not done Hashem Kiddushat to tefillin properly, not the ibud is not done properly, the painting is not done properly. If the straps are no good, the boxes and the writing doesn't work as well. Everything invalidates. Everything has to be working. Everything has to be intact. Right? So if a person is not careful, right, to buy tefillin, with even the skin where they make it from, it does not careful to buy it properly, he doesn't make not only doesn't he make the mitzvah, but every single day it says berachot levatala. Every single day saying berachot levatala for no reason, and therefore a person needs to be very careful. So if a person goes and he spends money on his clothing and on his vacations and on so on and so forth, invest in a good pair of tefillin, invest in good mitzvot. These things are a very precious mitzvot that help a person his whole life in this world and in the next world. To go cheap on these things is not worth it. A person should get it once, get it right, and that's it. He's calm. Just going to give you a little advice on who you should get from and how you should deal with it. So there's two different ways you could buy it. You can buy it from somebody. It's called a socher. A socher is like a dealer, right? A lot of times, many people are dealers, but a lot of times the dealers are not educated. Some are better, some are worse. Some look just to buy random anything that they can make money off of, as long as it has, what's called a tefillin. They themselves don't know anything. They think it's all the same. They're middlemen. They buy stuff and they sell it to make money, right? And unfortunately, a lot of times these people like to buy all the cheaper stuff because who's going to want to spend money with them? It's not their clientele generally, right? And then you have somebody who's a little bit better. Like a lot of times you have rabbis of shuls, the rabbis of kehillas, and so on. They, as a service, they provide these things for their community. So they're somewhat educated, but at the same time, they have to also be careful that, besides them buying from the right people, that it has to be checked by the right people. It has to be checked by people that check very diligently and carefully, right? For example, if you buy boxes can run you from $150 to $1,000, $1,500. It all depends on how it's made, depends on the skins they use, depends on how they make it, depends on what leniencies they use, depends on how they close holes, don't they close holes, right? It depends on how they make the actual ribua the bias. Is it perfect? Is it not perfect? How did they make the charitzim of the bias? How did they dry the bias? All these things take time. To make one good bottom for a pair of tefillin could take 1 year of work. Right, with all the drying and the process and the pulling out, and if something goes wrong, they throw it out. Some communities, they won't throw it out, right? They'll fix it up, so in b'diavad, they'll rely on this kula, that kula, and they'll paint it, and you will never know what they did in the interim, right? They don't want to lose all this money. They'd rather just sell it for cheaper and make money, right? Some companies are better. For them, whatever they don't accept, they'll throw in a box, and another cheaper company will come and take it and sell it for half the price, because they're being reliant on this cool and that cool and this suffix and so on and so forth, right? If a person wants top, person is going to go to somebody who makes top bottom. This person, every step of the way, he does properly. How they pull out the shin on the tefillin also makes a very big difference. And halacha it's a machloket, how they pull out the shin, one is it pasul, one is it kasher. Some people rely on leniency, some people don't rely on leniency. Some people make sveikot, some people don't make sveikot, right? When they put paint on the bayit has to be fully mirubah, fully square by square, without everything has to be the same measurements, right? And the actual lines in between the tefillin shalosh all need to be fully down, right? Sometimes if they're using paint and they paint it and the paint will touch up areas that they missed, it's also not good, right? It makes the tefillin or b'diavad or pasul, depends on how they do it, right? And then that's only the bottom, that's only the boxes, and the boxes could be horrible and they could be good. So you have to know, you have to ask, which hechsher is the bottom, right? Where did the boxes come from? Who made them? What company made them? Make sure you get a good company, right? Then you have to ask the parshiyot. The parshiyot, you have cloth, you have the parchment. The parchment could be handmade parchment. The parchment could be machine-made parchment, right? If it's machine-made parchment, okay, you have to know which company, right? Which hechsher do they have? Do they have goyim there, right? Some companies, they can rely on the machlok between the Rambam and the Rosh. They can rely on the Rosh, right? That how that if a goy helps in the process of making and use the L'Shem Kedusha Tefillin, it also works. The Rambam helps, it doesn't work, right? Some companies would rely on it, right? They would put it in and then the machine would do everything. Not everybody agrees that's fine, because it has to be done L'Shma, it has to be done for the sake of Tefillin, and if it's being put in and the machine is doing everything, it takes away from the L'Shma. Some poskim hold this pasul, some poskim hold this b'diavad, some poskim hold this mehudar. And then some other companies that do everything by hand, they do everything with Jews, and the Jews do all the work, and the Goyim just do the work that's not necessary in halacha, like it doesn't take away from the halacha kiddur of it, right? And then you have after they take the cloth, they have to scrape it, right? The Shulchan Aruch says you have to scrape only the amount that you need, right? In order to not scrape too much, that it'll remove it from being cloth, and it'll make it pasul, right? So that's called cloth lo migurad. You have to be careful. You have to know which company they're buying. You have to know how much they take of it. If they take off a little bit too much, it makes it not kosher. Using machines to sand it down, you have to make sure it comes from a good hechsher, right? You have a nice writing and the cloth is not from a good place, it's all b'diavad. What's the point? What is the writing going to work if the cloth is not lechatchila? Right? You have to know that there's handmade, there's machine-made, and even in those, there's a variation of how they do things, right? And then you have something called litza. Litza is the epidermis that leave in the cloth. It's like a shiny part that they don't take away. The Chai Adam says if you take that away, it's not kosher, it's pasul. It's a hidur, it's a chumrah. But it also has an advantage, is that if you know that it's there, you know that they didn't take too much off the back. Because if they take a little bit too much off the back, then it's not going to be kosher. So when you have the epidermis there, you know for sure they didn't take too much off the back. So it's a safety, even though it's a hidur, in halacha, it's not necessary, but it's also safety precaution. Now, if it doesn't have it and it has a good hechsher, then you could be fine. You could be sure that it's fine. Like I spoke to a certain company, I asked them how much they take off the back, and they told me like 0.1 millimeters, 0.2 millimeters, something like that, which is just enough in order to be able to call it klaf. Right? Some companies are careful, like they know exactly what they're doing, right? And then you have the straps. The straps, you can have two companies of straps. One is 3 times the price. They think why is one 3 times the price? On the paper it says they all do the same thing. But when I speak to the people that go to the factories, they tell me, yeah, they both right, they do the same thing. But this company is actually doing it, and that company is not necessarily doing it. Sometimes they do it, sometimes they flop, sometimes this misses, and the mashgiach comes and he screams at them, and life moves on like normal the next day. Right? Some companies are better, some people are more honest, some people are more less honest. Right? You have to know that this is a big field. There are people that are in it to do the right thing, and there are people in it just to make money, and they just whatever, they do whatever they do. And they rely on this kula, they rely on this kula, they rely on this suffix. You have to know that also. And then you have the actual writing itself. There's hundreds of halachot in regards to writing. The sofer needs to know the halachot of kisidran, the chaktochot. He needs to know kiddushat Hashem. If a sofer is writing, he needs to say, "Adenu kotev tefillin elu shem kiddushat tefillin." If he doesn't say that, the whole tefillin is pasul. Rav Badger brings a story that everybody used to write tefillin from a certain sofer one time, and then when he came to test the tefillin, and he asked him, "What do you say before you write tefillin?" He says nothing. He said everything is rotus pasul. If a sofer needs to write Hashem's name before he writes Hashem's name, he says, "Adenu kotev shem ze leshem kiddushat Hashem." If he didn't say, the whole tefillin is pasul. Right? Say if a sofer wrote a pair of tefillin and he forgot, oh wow, I don't think I did one Shem Hashem, I don't think I said Leshem Kedushat Tefillin. The whole thing is pasul, right? Or if it happened in Sefer Torah, the whole Sefer Torah is pasul, right? So who's gonna know? How are you ever gonna find out? Only the sofer knows. He has to be Yirei Shamayim. He just spent 2 weeks writing a pair of tefillin. He has to have tremendous amount of Yirei Shamayim to be able to tell you that he made that mistake. Nachaimi, can you take her out for a minute? I'm gonna be done in a minute. Go, Moon, I'm gonna come now, okay? So a person has to be.
Want to help me get the snacks?
So a person has to be a tremendous Yirei Shamayim in order to be able to do it, right? To do things properly. Nechemia, can you please close my door? Can you please close my door? Thank you. So a person has to be a tremendous Yirei Shamayim, right? If he doesn't, if he's not a Yirei Shamayim, you will never know what he did, right? Or if he's writing and 2 letters accidentally touched. And right now, the 2 letters touched, sometimes they could be kosher, sometimes they could be not kosher. So he needs to be able to ask a Rav who knows to tell you if this is good or not. If he thinks, okay, it's fine, and he separates it and moves on, maybe it wasn't good, he has to have Yirei Shamayim to be able to know that, right? Or if he wrote a letter and one part of it he missed, and he continued writing, he only realized afterwards that one part of the level he missed. So he wrote the aleph, and the bottom part he didn't write. So he's not allowed to go back and fix it. Right? And if he wrote Hashem's name, he can't erase backwards. He has to put everything in Gidizal, and he has to start all over again. So sofer needs to be Yirei Shamayim to know that he can't add that. Or there's chak tochot, you can only make a letter out of writing. You can't erase. If one part of the letter is no good, you can't erase with a knife to make it good. That's considered chak tochot. That's also not kosher. So there's so many halachot that a sofer needs to know in order for him to be able to do the right thing. And that's in regards to the writing. Right? And then you have the sofer himself. The Ramchal says the kiddusha in the actual writing is according to the kiddusha of the sofer. Right? If the sofer is about Torah, he's a Yirei Shamayim, Yishomer Zinayim, Yishomer Kiddusha, he's about Torah. And somebody that's holding, right? If you look at the tefillin from the earlier Chachamim, a lot of the tefillins weren't so nice. They were nice, but weren't so nice. But they got from Sofrim, they were holy. From the Sofrim, they were righteous. Sofrim, they were very righteous people, right? Because the Kiddusha and the actual writing depends on the actual Kiddusha of the Sofer. If you get a Sofer that's not holding so well, he's not, the writing is nice, it's what's there, so it's a nice writing. It's like you have, these people have these Lamborghini bodies on their car with a Toyota engine inside. It's the same thing, right? It's not the real thing. You need to make sure everything is good. You need to make sure the bottom are good. You need to make sure the ritzuot are good. You need to make sure the writing is good. Sometimes the sofer he's writing, right? If the letter at the lamed, if the head of the lamed is a little bit short like a yud, there are some poskim that say it's kosher, some poskim say it's not kosher. It's not mehudar anymore. So you have to be very careful. And just one of many examples, so many things could go wrong, right? And so a person needs to be very careful when he buys a pair of tefillin. He needs to know who he's getting from, what he's buying. And a lot of times, the people that are checking it, today unfortunately, people that check don't check as well as they should, right? They check it, they check a little bit too fast sometimes. The sofer is writing, right? The sofer is writing. Sometimes 2 letters could touch. The sofer is not going to wait until he touch a little bit, not to the point where it's not kosher. He could separate it later. So he right, it touches a little bit, one here, one there, and then he finishes writing it, right? And then he gives it to the guy to check it. The guy who computers checks it, and the guy, he manually checks it afterwards, and the guy who checks it is supposed to touch up all these small things that the sofer mix that doesn't make it not kosher, but the small things that the sofer mixes, misses, like these little touch-ups that the sofer has to fix, right? For example, if a sofer wrote a letter, and a little part of the gimel was a little bit too long, so it's fine halachically, but it doesn't look so nice. So he should fix it afterwards. Sometimes it doesn't fix it, right? And so the one who checks it afterwards has to catch it. The Kaf HaChaim says after a person writes a Sefer Torah, 4 different people should check it afterwards, because not everybody's eyes are the same. I was sitting one time with a sofer that was checking a Sefer Torah. The column he already finished checking. He went to the next column. I went to look at that column to see what he checked, and I found letters touching there. That means he missed 2 letters touching. And he's a sofer that people use. He's a sofer that's highly held of. How did he miss it? Maybe he has -11 vision also on his glasses. I'm not so sure why he's checking at all, right? But my point being is, people are people. People could miss things. If you check a tefillin and you miss one thing, the whole thing is not good. Is the sofer bad? No, the sofer is not bad. The sofer could have been of a great sofer, but it happens, right? Is the person that checked bad? He should have been more careful. Therefore, it's always preferable to give it to 2 people, 3 people to check afterwards. Not only one person. Ask how many people checked. One person and another person checked for it. Pay a little more. Let the other person check for it. Why? Just in case. I had a customer come to me recently and said, Rabbi, please, my tefillin, I want 3 different sofrim to check it. I said, okay, no problem. We'll get this one, this one, this one. He's smart. He doesn't want anybody to miss anything. He's careful. He's precautious. So when you're going in and you're buying from a sofer, you want to be educated. You want to know what to buy, what not to buy. You have to know that what you want, and you have to go to a sofer that you can rely on, and somebody that's trustworthy. If you want to go to your Rav of your community, you also have to tell him, Rabbi, I want from a sofer that's a Torah, and Baal Torah, a sofer that's Yireh Shemayim, a sofer that goes to the mikveh if you want every day, a sofer that writes nicely, a sofer that sits and learns Torah, a sofer that has a nice writing, and I also want 2-3 people afterwards to check it. So this way you know you could be calm. The rabbi is going to go do what you want him to do. Right? But a lot of rabbis, they'll just go to a sofer that they trust, and they'll tell him, okay, give me merchandise, and he'll give it to them, and they'll get it checked somewhere, right? And they generally go to good places, but sometimes it's not enough to check once, right? And sometimes this will miss, and that will miss, and it happens all the time. And doing this for 15 years, I've checked over so many sofrim and so many people from everywhere, and I find problems almost every single time. I check somebody's tefillin. He's wearing this tefillin for 20 years. He got it checked a few times already in a few different places, of reputable places. I found crack letters. I found missing tagim. How did people miss this? I'm not sure, but it happens, right? There's stories upon stories upon stories, and therefore you need to be careful. You need to know what you're buying. You need to know what to ask for. You need to know how to buy, right? And therefore, why am I saying this? Because I hear all the time stories of this happened and this happened and that happened. And somebody brought me a pair of tefillin and his rabbi opened up him. On the writing itself on the side, it said pasul. The sofer who wrote it wrote pasul on the side. Some guy went, took it, some Rasha, put it together and sold it. It said pasul on the writing. I don't know. And he sold it anyways. This guy miscan opened it up after a few years. The rabbi told him, go over there, go get yourself another pair of tefillin. It says not kosher on the actual writing on the side. The sofer wrote it's not kosher. I basically see, unfortunately, Hashem Menachem, it happens, and we need to be careful when we go and we buy, to do the right thing and to buy the right thing, to educate yourselves a little bit, not just to go randomly and to buy things with your eyes closed, not just the writing. Everything has to be good. The sofer has to be good, the writing has to be good, the bottom have to be good, the ritzvot have to be good. Everything has to be good. You have to get it checked several times, get it computer checked. This way you know you're calm, right? You're calm. Don't just go to, I know somebody came to me, he bought from a Talmid Chacham in Long Island somewhere. He bought 4 pairs of tefillin from him. He's a Talmid Chacham, but this Talmid Chacham bought from Israel, somebody that he trusts. I opened up the tefillin. It's the weirdest thing. Half the letters, half missing, and so on and so forth. How did it happen? I have no idea how it happened, right? But the rabbi himself doesn't understand Safrut. He doesn't know. He buys from somebody that he relies on. How did this happen to that guy? I know it was the weirdest thing. I'm not so sure what happened, right? And I'm sure he doesn't mean bad. I told him, I'm sure the rabbi didn't mean bad. He's a Talmid Chacham. I'm sure he meant to buy you the right thing. It happens. What are you supposed to do? Hashem Merachem. It happens. Therefore, right, it's always preferable to buy from the sofer. You know exactly what you are buying, from who you are buying. You know you're buying it from a person that's an expert, that knows what he's looking at. And therefore, I bless all of you with that Hashem should all be zocheh to mekayim these mitzvot. of tefillin and mezuzot and so on and so forth. And we should all be zochet to have a long life. B'atzlacha.